Hello everyone, happy holidays out there. I hope you're all doing great. We have now reached the final video on my channel of the year. It's always super exciting because this is where I go down memory lane and show you my favorite photos of 2022 that I have taken myself, of course. The criteria is, as always, each year that it is photos that I would like to hang on my wall. It is photos that I personally am very happy about and not necessarily photos that has performed good on, let's say, social media. So another criteria is also that I am going through this chronologically. So we will start in January, then February, March, and so on, where I pick out my favorite photos. So this photo here, I took it already on the 2nd of January, and I gotta admit that I really like this one here. I really like this very airy quality to it. As you can see, I've taken it all the way out at 400mm. I had to do some dehazing to get the trees pushed properly out of the fog, but they were still standing out to the eye. So I could still work with the composition and try to get a proper separation between the trees. The trees really reminds me of some specters or something like that stands out there in the mist. And it's quite, from what I have seen, quite an original photo, considering it's from Denmark. I haven't seen much like this before. So it's a photo that I'm really happy about, and I really like the lighter, more airy tone of it. So I have no problem admitting to the fact that I had a really hard winter and spring when it came to my photography. I just could not get some proper photos, something that I was happy about. And we have to jump all the way to the middle of March before I again got something that I was happy about. But wow, did I get something I was happy about. Are you kidding me? It's so good. What? It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And just as I was supposed to start filming, it's like so many birds just flying into the scene at once, but you haven't even captured a single one of them. It's like, panic. Wow. This photo here is, for me, it's definitely in my top 3 of my favorite photos of the year. Definitely also in top 10 of my all-time favorite photos. It's just one of those mornings I completely didn't foresee. I could see it was foggy outside when I woke up, and I was just like, okay, head out into it and get whatever I could. And I ended up in this location here where I didn't know about this composition. I didn't know about the little pier I was standing on here. And I had actually already got quite a lot of decent photos this morning. So I was just standing, photographing the birds on the lake. And then the mist started slowly to evaporate. And the sunbeams came down and hit these 2 trees. It was actually really a line of trees, but this part of the composition was what I found to be the most interesting. And then I had this pack of birds flying in front, and I got everything in one shot. And this was where I really got one of those Eyegasm moments. And to me, this is just it's such a unique photo. I have seen photos like this from Alaska or something like that, not from Denmark. And that is why this photo means so much to me, because this was really where the year 2022 started in regard to me getting, finally, a good photo. So let's jump all the way to May, where I got this photo. I know this is not my typical style. This is very, very saturated, but there's just something about May and the rapeseed fields or canola fields or whatever you call them. And then I have this beautiful middle section with the fields and the tractor tracks, the blue sky, and then I just have that little slither of cloud there that is laying on top there a little bit of melting snow or something like that. Then of course the canola fields. I love this photo. It makes me happy, and there's definitely some originality to it too, considering this is from Denmark. Haven't seen a whole lot of places where you could get a photo like this. So it's yet again one of those photos that just appeared. I hadn't foreseen it, I hadn't planned it. I drove past and I was like, there's a composition, click. And it also reminds me, due to the colors, of many of those backgrounds that you get on Lego or Playmobil, some toy or something like that. Yeah, it's just a photo that makes me happy. I love May, I love spring, I love this time of year to just drive around and use the canola fields in my compositions. And also I just want to jump in here before we go to the next photo and say a big thank you for 2022. Thank you for all the very nice comments that you all put on my videos when I ask for it. It really means a lot. It means a lot also that you help me get my content more out there, because that's what likes do and that's what comments do. So obviously, thank you for that. And especially thank you for all the nice words, not just the comment in and of itself, but actually what you write in the comments. I do read them. It means a lot. So thank you for following along. This photo here is also one of my top favorites of 2022. I actually got a similar photo from last year in the end of summer, which also is one of my favorite photos from last year. This one here is a green version, a little bit also moody because of the clouds, but I really like that it's green and it's more optimistic than the late summer photo. So this here is an early summer photo. So what's not to like about this photo? Lone tree on a field, a complete simplicity. It works so well in a frame or as a wallpaper on the computer or something like that. I just love the simplicity and the optimistic part of it with the colors. I'm having a hard time deciding whether I like this one or the late summer version first, but obviously I don't have to choose. I just really like this one. So this photo here is also just like one of my absolute favorite photos of 2022 and all-time favorite photos. So different places around Denmark, we get these elongated tide pools when the sea comes in and out due to the tide. And here I'm pretty sure it's like low tide, so just walk out onto these banks of sand. Then I put up the drone, and due to the very still water, I get this reflection of the clouds in the water. You can see there is some background birds up there in the right corner. But due to the perspective and due to me standing there and my shadow due to the low-hanging sun, you get this super weird effect that it looks as if I'm like walking on sand bridges in a cloud or in clouds or something like that. I really, really like this photo, and definitely also one of those I've gotten printed, as you saw in my video with Nigel where we sat down and talked. So it's also going on my wall. And of course, if you want to learn much more about composition landscape photography, be sure to get my 2 ebooks. There are links to them down in the description. I've designed them so they're minimal, they're very easy to read, they have plenty of examples, so you actually get through the ebooks and hopefully internalize what it is I'm trying to teach you. If you are in doubt about whether you want them or not, be sure to try out the light versions first. And as mentioned, there are links to them down in the description of the video. So for the first time this year, I actually went to Tuscany in Italy, and I got a lot of completely new photos that I've never taken before. It was a beautiful, beautiful trip. And of all the photos I got quite a lot of like original photos also. But I gotta admit, this most traditional photo in all of Tuscany, photographing this house that everybody is photographing, I gotta admit this one turned out to probably be my favorite. And I know it's a honeypot location, but in the end, there's a reason why it's a honeypot location. It's just so beautiful. In my photo here, I've introduced a little bit of the foreground with these trees here in the foreground. So I have immediate foreground, then I have the midground where the house is, and then into the background, into the fog, into the mist of the rolling hills of Tuscany. And what I especially like about this photo here compared to many of the other photos I got of this location is that we are now out of the golden hour. So I get these fresh green colors in combination with the fog. And for some reason over the years, I found out that as much as I like the golden hour when it comes to green hills and fields and so forth, I generally prefer to actually have the more white light, the neutral light rather than the orange light, because you get more true colors of the fields and then you still get the atmosphere. So there's something fresh about it rather than, you know, golden, yellow, super burn, sunrise photo colors. So yeah, there's just something freshness about this photo that I really like. So now we have jumped about a month and we are in the middle of summer back home in Denmark. This location was a place that I had scouted out beforehand. I knew that there was quite a decent chance that I would be able to get some cool photos here if it was foggy. And it sure was foggy this morning here, low-hanging fog, and almost like you can even see the texture in the fog. And there was these silver birches standing out, and just when the first light came up and hit the top of the trees, it was just like magic. Fog, light, beautiful trees, lots of layers throughout the photo. And I've even like excluded the horizon. As you can see, I generally exclude the horizon. I actually also excluded the horizon in this previous photo. You just can't see it due to the fog. It just becomes white. But here I've excluded the horizon also. And it just gives much more depth to the photo. It's a very simple photo. But again, it's one that you just don't see a whole lot of these kinds of photos in Denmark. And that has just become one of my things the past 3 years, is to photograph my home country in the most beautiful light and atmosphere that I can. It has just become a thing for me, and I absolutely love this photo here. I also went back to the Dolomites for the first time in like 5 years, and this is the second and also think the last of my honeypot favorite photos. This here is Tracim de Lavarado, probably one of the most classic shots of these rocks, cliffs, mountains. And for a good reason, like, come on, that leading line there in the front, leading you in to the mountains. And it's funny with this shot here, because for the most part, I generally prefer to have a lot of clouds in the sky, have some drama, have some texture up there. And I actually didn't think much of this photo when I took it. But I think that over the last part of the year here, it has really grown on me for its simplicity, even though I can still like see that there's a lot going on, like there's plenty of details. It's probably my widest angle photo of all my favorites of 2022. And it does help to have the moon up there above the mountains. And of course the light, and there's some atmosphere also. So in all its simplicity, it's not super dramatic. It's actually a photo that I enjoy looking at, with its orange and teal look, blue sky, orange ground. Yeah, I really enjoy this photo. I really enjoy this photo. And it surprises me. Honestly, it surprises me, because I would have been like, meh, if someone had told me that these were the conditions we would get. But it has really grown on me. And then, of course, there's the volcano. That was probably the craziest experience I've had in 2022. And one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life was to witness a live volcano, a rift of a volcano in front of me. And I took so many photos on this day. If you haven't seen this video, it's definitely one of my favorites of 2022. It was just amazing. And as I said, I got so many photos. I got one drone photo which has a tendency to do a little bit better on the social media, and I like it. But in the end, this photo here is the one I like the most. I really love the compression. I love these two figures here in the foreground. I tried to also get some photos with myself standing there, but I just couldn't line it up in the darkness. It was so dark. It was so hard walking here. I even like fell over at some point and hurt my hand. But yeah, like, what's to say? Long lens on, zoom in, a couple of people in the foreground, and then the big volcano rift there in the background to show some scale and some drama. Fairly fast shutter speed. As you can see, I had to up it all the way up to ISO 640 to get at least 1/40th of a second, because I kind of wanted to freeze the lava. So yeah, there's not much to say. It's just like, I love this photo, and it's an experience that will stay with me for the rest of my life. That's how it goes. And then we go to something completely else. So this photo here, I actually got a version of this photo all the way back in March. where I found that I could actually make this photo, but I knew that I would probably prefer it with some heather, because these hills where I took this photo is known for their heather. And I really like that I can manage to compress the scene so much, or I can walk quite far away with the camera and then I can walk into the scene and I can get the heather there in front and I can get the background forest, again, where you cut off the horizon. You can't see the sky. And it just makes the scene so much more grand and big. And it is such an uncommon photo in Denmark. This one here, there's not a whole lot of places where you can get such a clean composition in such a hilly landscape. And you also get the color contrast between the violet-ish heather and the greenish background forest. And then little me standing in there to show some scale in this big environment. It's one of those photos that I'm so happy about. But when I upload it on Instagram, it just falls completely apart. Like, nobody likes this photo on Instagram. But it's one of those photos that really deserves to be hanging on a wall on a huge print like the one here in the background. So if you followed my work for some years, you know I also edit my photos quite a lot. I still think it's utterly important that you get the photo as optimal as you can in regard to light and composition and so forth. When you're in the field, you have to put yourself in front of amazing places, amazing conditions. But editing is just absolutely important for your photography. If you want to learn all my techniques and how I edit my photos, be sure to enroll in my big Photoshop for Landscape Photographers post-processing course. 19 hours of editing. I share all my editing techniques. We start in the easy end. I teach you how the programs work, especially Photoshop, that the first time you open Photoshop, you're like, ugh, too many buttons, let's click out. So I teach you how to actually use Photoshop. And then we advance through all the different techniques that I use in Camera Raw / Lightroom and Photoshop. There is a link and a coupon code down in the description of this video so you can get started and save a little bit of money. And I hope you will learn a lot about that. Also, thanks a lot to all of you who signed up during Black Week. I hope you are enjoying the Photoshop course and you're learning a whole lot. So as you have heard me say a few times on my channel here, is that the closer to my childhood home I can get a photo that I'm really happy about, the more it means to me. And this photo here is just one of them. I remember that when I took this photo, I knew that this would probably be one of my favorite photos of 2022. And it's just because it's taken literally 5 minutes from where I've grown up. And it just shows the landscapes I've grown up in beautiful atmospheric conditions. It's a photo that means a lot to me, but again, a photo that probably doesn't do a whole lot for a lot of people on Instagram, because it is quite a neutral landscape. It's not a particularly interesting landscape, I guess. But for me, this here is home in photographic conditions that I enjoy very much and I like to capture. So this photo here, like, it's probably also in my top 3 of my favorite photos of 2022. This was an insane morning. This is the best fog inversion that I've experienced in Denmark ever. I haven't experienced that many of them, and there's not a whole lot of places where you can actually get up and get to a vantage point and look out over forests with fog underneath in Denmark. In where I've grown up, in that area is probably the best. We call it the Lake Highlands in Jutland. And that is because there's quite a lot of hills and forests and lakes. So the landscapes are fairly dynamic. And this specific place here, I had researched it beforehand, so I knew that there was a potential for me to get some good photos if I went up there on an atmospheric morning. So that's what I did, and I just hammered in photos off in all directions. You can see almost 360 degrees all the way around. And of all the photos I got this morning from this hill, this one here is my favorite. I love the colors. Even though they're quite orangey and morning, I wouldn't mind it not being orange, but in this case here, I just love it for what it is. I love that you can see all the layers, the trees popping up. I love the inclusion of the birds here. So what I had to do was that I did quite a lot of filming. So I used the birds from one of my videos, and then I just copied them into my photograph. I hope that makes sense. So stills from a video, and then I layered them in on Photoshop and put them in on top of one of my stills. Same scene, same composition. And yeah, what's to say? It's one of my absolute favorite photos because, again, this is just such a rare event to see in Denmark. I have tried with other crops that I also like. You can crop off the lower part section there, and it kind of goes against what I like about composition, is that I have that little twig tree all the way down in the left corner that you can see. And for the most part, I would probably say that to crop it out. But there's something about it. I actually like it in there, even though it takes a little bit of attention. So generally, you don't want to have attention-craving elements close to the edge of your frame, unless they're very important to have there. And this one is not particularly important to have there. But for me, I really like this photo here. It's one of my... However, on the same morning, I got this photo here. And I'm not a wildlife photographer at all. I don't consider myself a wildlife photographer. I don't mind having wildlife in my photos. I don't mind making sure that the wildlife is also the focal point. But this one here, the minimalism of it, the colors, the light coming in from the side, the swans all going in the same direction. You have the depth between the swans in the foreground and then those reeds there in the background. And you can actually see that there's a darker line just above the reeds where there's some trees in the background in the fog. And it's just such a minimalist and beautiful and calm scene from a lake in Denmark. It's very typical lake, but due to the atmosphere, I really managed to minimize the information in the scene. And again, as you have seen in my video where I sat down and talked with Nigel, we also printed this one here, so it's also going on the wall for sure. Yeah. This is something else than those very dramatic Milky Way photos that I also like to take. Super minimal, super calm, super atmospheric. These are the kind of photos that I like to actually hang on my wall. They don't crave attention, but they calm you down. And then off to England. Oh my word, was that an amazing trip. So England and Wales, and of my favorite photos I got from there, definitely those Lake District photos. You have hopefully seen my Lake District video, 1 hour. If you haven't, check it out. Wow. I just put everything good into that video. And this here is one of my favorite photos from the morning at Lothric Fell. It probably is my favorite photo from that morning, as you can see hanging here in the background also. For the same reason as the previous photo from Denmark, I really like being up high, excluding the horizon, very important, and then just fill up the frame with a forest where you have all the fog in layers in there to like create this very atmospheric and moody photo, yet it has the freshness. And especially like this one because we're out of the golden hour. So we get the neutral, natural colors in combination with the atmosphere. And of course, this photo here, like as I talked about in the video from the Lake District, I hope I made Tolkien proud, because for me, this here just screams England, yet it reminds me so much of Lord of the Rings and the Shire, and some very advanced hobbits with that asphalt road and the chimneys in the background. But yeah, what's to say? Like James and I drove past this place on the way into a mountain in the background. And I was just like, we have to come back here, James. We have to come back here. I want to photograph that tree. And we came back, and the light was just when the light popped out. Oh, this is also one of those scenes where the light really makes the scene. You can see the sun there in the back of the tree. It lights up all the atmosphere behind the tree, so the tree stands out. It lights up the rim of the little hill upon where the tree is standing. So we get all these different layers throughout the photo with the light. So some of it is in shadow, some of it is in light, and it just carves out the scene perfectly. This here is, for me, it's probably one of those photos I'm going to use as to show the importance of light. Because I also got a few photos where there wasn't light. Maybe I should show them in a future video. And you can really see the difference between when there's light and when there's not light. So yeah, this photo here, it just screams England. And for me, definitely also one of my favorite photos of 2022. Not to mention this one, it also screams England. One of the things I really wanted to do before I went to England was to make sure that I took a photo with all these very characteristic fields with stone fences between them. Like, they're so iconic for England. And again, in Lake District, we hiked up Castle Craig, and we had showers coming in all the time and sunbeams. It was just like an amazing, amazing day for photography. And this one here is literally taken in the middle of the day. But because we're in the middle of October, the sun isn't that far up over the horizon. So we got these beautiful sunbeams when the clouds opened up. And yeah, photo out over Borrowdale here, it's just, yeah, what's to say? Gorgeous light, gorgeous landscape. And yeah, amazing. I really get looking at these photos from this year. I really felt that I struggled so much in the beginning. Had I just known, Mads, take it easy. Don't worry. You will get there. You will get plenty of photos that you will be happy about in 2022. I was, okay, relax. So yeah, it's hard not to compare when you start a new photography year with what you experienced the year before. At least for me, I'm still so young as a photographer that each year stands out as something unique. So as each year, I also want to present some of my other favorite photos that didn't quite make it to, in this case this year, top 16. So here is a little montage. So I hope you enjoyed me talking about my photography. I want to wish you a happy New Year's. Be careful out there. Don't explode your eyes on New Year's. Make sure that your fingers are intact afterwards. And yeah, see you in a week's time for another video. And be sure to check out links down in the description if you want to learn even more. See ya.